In my research, I kept running into the number 3 and multiples of 3 found in both naturally occurring phenomena as well as esoteric teachings throughout the world. And of course, esotericism is very much derived from a very close observation of nature. It seems no surprise at all that such a highly venerated symbol as the Triforce would be, we would find it everywhere, of course, even in a Japanese video game. A culture which has a close, and I'm talking about Japan, is a culture which with a close spiritual bond with the realms of the natural as well as the metaphysical. The Triforce has more significance than I had initially discovered when I started this presentation, when I started researching for this series. So we're going to start with Pythagoras of Samos, or the cult of Pythagoras, as many have referred to his work. Pythagoras, it seems, was obsessed with geometry. What we know about the time he lived, which is about the 4th century BC, was that scientific inquiry, known as natural philosophy at the time, was not thought of as being separate from mysticism or magic. This being a purely Eastern sentiment imported to the West, by the way, this worldview was largely extinguished by the Holy Roman Empire. It was Eastern thought emanating from Egypt and from Persia that had brought this new knowledge and the subsequent explosion of philosophical inquiry to the West. Such teachings were met with a new perspective, which illuminated an entirely novel class of curious Western minds. Pythagoras was one such curious mind, of course. He has been remembered as a mystic and a natural philosopher to some, and an early mathematician to others. It really seems to me that Pythagoras rediscovered what has already been known for thousands of years prior. However, such a rediscovery is still very important, as it took curiosity and an ample supply of effort to truly appreciate the power of the equilateral triangle. Of all natural objects and shapes, the triangle contains the mysteries to both the metaphysical and physical realms. Here, Pythagoras holds in his hand a Pyramidion, which we learned earlier is used as the capstone for the Great Pyramids at Giza. In esoteric symbolism, an image depicted on the left from the perspective of the viewer indicates the masculine or metaphysical energy. We must not forget that Pythagoras is holding this key or Pyramidion in his right hand, the right hand side of the perspective of Pythagoras. This indicates the feminine or physical energy. Both physical and metaphysical aspects, or feminine and masculine respectively, are but one possible perspective from which the significance of the triangle could be contemplated. Naturally, the triangle has been known since far ancient times to be the strongest shape to work with in architecture. It isn't clear just how long ago this was recognized in the world or exactly where. However, chances are this discovery was made in many places in the world along the vast timeline of human history. While there are definite mathematical reasons why the triangle is the strongest shape, we can also understand why in another way. The Triforce is comprised of 3 equilateral triangles. So we must consider that there are 3 different aspects working together. Each of these aspects is a triangle in its own right, of course. So we have 3 triangles forming one larger triangle, each individual triangle possessing its own 3 separate sides. This will factor as something highly significant once we look into this in greater detail. First, let us consider this Triforce as a model of the universal concept of time. We will call this the Triforce of Time. Now, the Triforce of Time is comprised of past, present, and future. This Triforce represents the natural progression of our universe, at least to all creation stories in human history, including the Big Bang theory of science. The universe has what we refer to as a past, present, and a future. Objectively, we could very well say that time is an ever-present now, and that this is most certainly true. But in the sense of basic human psychology and language, we understand and make sense of our world in terms of past, present, and future. While this isn't much of a revelation, of course, let's take a closer look at one of these aspects and see if we can discern the other two aspects from the unity of the one. So if we look closer at the Triforce element of the present, we can appreciate objectively that the present is the eternal now. However, in the human sense, we wouldn't know what present was at all if we had no point of reference, which are points of reference being the past and the future. So it's easy to recognize that the Triforce of Time, while comprised of three separate elements of past, present, and future, really is a monad or one complete whole. A whole which is comprised of interdependent aspects, but not distinctly separate parts at all. We see these as separate, but they're just not. It's easy to understand that the number 3 actually represents a strength or unity of one single thing, which is made strong or whole by its 3 aspects. And when I say aspects, I don't mean distinct parts, but an aspect as in perhaps a side. This concept of the one being made simultaneously strong and whole by 3 overlapping aspects is as fundamental an understanding of our world as perhaps anything else I have come across so far. This pattern of triads can be found in countless numbers of places, from the mundane and everyday to the spiritual and esoteric. All one must do in order to deepen his or her sight into this fundamental principle of our reality is to gain just a little awareness of how pervasive these triads are. We must not forget the specific significance of the number 3 and the number 4 in Western esoteric study. And this is especially important if we are to fully appreciate the Triforce and how it maps to the human psyche. The number 4 represents the physical elements, or the exoteric outer world. The world of forms, including the 4 elements, representing the manifestation of the physical world. The number 3, on the other hand, represents the unseen metaphysical aspects which presumably give rise or make it possible for the 4 elements and all things in the physical realm to manifest. From the Alchemical Rebis depiction we see here, it is important to note that the number 3 and the equilateral triangle are inside of the square and the number 4 on the globe. At least part of it is inside. It is the metaphysical Triforce aspect energies which make the physical elements possible. Therefore, each classical element is composed of a 3-fold aspect of metaphysical prima materia, as it were. While this presentation is not about decoding what the elements of air, fire, earth, and water are spiritually composed of, what needs to be understood here is that the number 3 represents the metaphysical, while the number 4 represents the physical or simple bodies, such as, of course, fire, Fire is actually the monad. Air is known as a dyad. It's 2. Water is the triad, and earth is the tetrad. Even though it is widely known that there's also a 5th element known as ether, and this may also factor into the physical realm of existence. What I want to do is bring into view for the audience why the number 3 corresponds to the realm of the non-physical, or the unmeasurable material of the psyche. Why is 3 a metaphysical number? Why does the Triforce or 3 points or 3 sides, why does 3 map to the human psyche?